My name is Elena Carter, and for a long time I truly believed I belonged to a family that would never turn its back on me. When I left for another country 5 years ago, I carried with me memories of laughter, shared dinners, and promises that nothing would ever change. But the moment I came back, suitcase in one hand and hope in the other, I felt something cold in the air, something that didn't belong to the home I remembered. My mother's eyes hesitated before meeting mine, my brother's smile looked rehearsed, and even the house smelled different, like time had erased my presence from every corner. I told myself I was imagining things, that distance can make people awkward, but deep down I knew something was wrong. The family photo that once hung in the living room was gone, replaced by one without me. My bedroom door, once covered with stickers and memories, was freshly painted as if they had tried to erase every trace that I ever existed. Still, I smiled, hugged them all, and said I was happy to be back. They told me life had been busy and that things changed, but no one looked me in the eye for more than a second. That night, as I unpacked my clothes, I found my old journals missing, the ones I'd left hidden under the bed. When I asked about them, my brother shrugged and said he didn't remember. My chest tightened. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was standing in a stranger's house, surrounded by familiar faces pretending not to know me. I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, wondering when my own family had decided that I no longer belonged. I didn't realize it then, but that night marked the beginning of everything: the silence, the betrayal, and eventually, the revenge that would change all of our lives forever. Asterisk. The next morning, sunlight filtered through the curtains, warm and soft, but nothing inside me felt calm. I walked downstairs expecting the comfort of coffee, familiar laughter, and the sound of my mother humming in the kitchen, but instead, I was met with quiet whispers and the clinking of dishes. My mother greeted me with a polite smile, like she was talking to a guest, not her daughter. My brother sat across the table, scrolling through his phone, pretending not to see me. Even my father, the man who once called me his brightest star, looked uncomfortable, as if my presence had disturbed some invisible peace they had built without me. I tried to break the silence, asking about their lives, their work, the neighbors, but every answer felt short and forced. There was no warmth, no excitement, no "we missed you." I wanted to ask why, but I swallowed my questions because a part of me feared the answer. Later that day, I went out into the garden, hoping the old oak tree would bring me comfort like it used to. That tree had seen every version of me, laughing, crying, growing, and it still stood strong. But when I turned around, I noticed that even the flowers I had planted before leaving were gone, replaced by new ones my mother said were easier to manage. I smiled, but it hurt. That night, I overheard them talking in the living room. My name came up, and my mother's voice dropped low. "We can't let her find out," she said. I froze where I stood, my heart thudding so loudly it drowned out her words. Find out what? About whom? I stayed silent, listening, but they stopped talking when footsteps approached. I rushed back to my room, pretending to sleep, my heart heavy with questions. I didn't know it yet, but what they were hiding would shake the very foundation of who I thought I was. Asterisk. Days passed, but the tension in the house never eased. Every time I entered a room, conversations stopped, eyes shifted, and someone suddenly remembered an errand. It was like living inside a secret that everyone shared but me. I tried convincing myself I was imagining things, that maybe years apart had just made us distant, but small clues began to pile up. My old office key was missing from the drawer. The family business, Carter Designs, which I had helped build from scratch before leaving, now had a new name on the door: Nathan Carter and Associates. Nathan, my brother, had taken my position, my title, and from the looks of it, my entire legacy. The company emails I tried to access were blocked. My passcode didn't work. When I asked Nathan about it, he smiled casually and said, "Oh, Elena, things changed. You were gone too long." Just like that, as if 5 years of dedication, of late nights and sacrifices, could be erased with a shrug. I wanted to scream, but I didn't. Instead, I smiled and nodded, pretending it didn't break me. That evening, I went through some old files in the study, hoping to find proof that I was still part of the business. But most of the documents with my name had been removed or replaced. That's when I found something hidden behind a stack of books, a contract signed by all of them, transferring my shares to my brother under mutual family consent. My hands trembled as I read the date. It was signed 3 years ago while I was still abroad, completely unaware. My own family had erased me legally, quietly, while sending me cheerful birthday messages every year. I felt my knees weaken, but I refused to fall. That night, I looked at my reflection and whispered to myself, "They think I'm gone. They think I won't fight. They have no idea who I've become." It was in that moment, through the pain, the disbelief, and the betrayal, that something inside me changed forever. Perfect. Here's the continuation, written in Elena Carter's first-person voice, emotional, cinematic, and simple English, all in one continuous paragraph. I didn't sleep that night. Every minute felt heavy, every thought sharper than the last. I sat by the window, staring at the dark street outside, feeling like my entire life had been rewritten while I was away. The people I trusted most, my own family, had turned my absence into their opportunity. My mind kept replaying the years I had given them, the ideas I brought to Carter Designs, the way I had defended Nathan when others doubted him. And now he sat in my chair, wearing my title, pretending I never existed. The next morning, I confronted my mother. My voice trembled, but I asked anyway, "Why did you do this?" She didn't deny it. She just sighed and said, "Elena, we thought you'd moved on. You were gone for too long, and Nathan was here to handle things." Her tone was calm, as if she hadn't just confirmed that they stole my life. My father didn't even look at me. He just turned away, pretending to be busy with his coffee. That silence cut deeper than any words. I left the house that day feeling completely alone, like an unwanted guest in my own story. I wandered through the city, not knowing where I was going, until I found myself standing in front of our old office building. The logo that once carried my initials was gone, replaced by Nathan's. For a moment, I just stood there, my reflection faintly visible in the glass door, the reflection of someone who had been erased. But beneath that reflection, I saw something else, strength. I realized that if they could take everything from me once, they could do it again if I stayed broken. So I decided that I wouldn't beg, I wouldn't cry, And I wouldn't fight them openly. No, I would rise differently, quietly, strategically. I would make them regret ever underestimating me. That was the day I stopped being the Elena they remembered and became the woman they would soon fear. Asterisk the day I decided to fight back, something inside me shifted. I stopped crying, stopped explaining myself, and started observing. I realized revenge wasn't about shouting or proving them wrong. It was about rebuilding quietly, piece by piece, until the day they looked up and realized I had become everything they thought I couldn't be. I started by revisiting my old contacts, the clients I had once brought to Carter Designs, the architects, the investors, the designers who had admired my work. Many of them remembered me fondly, some even shocked to hear what had happened. One of them, Mr. Hargrove, an old investor and friend, invited me for coffee. He said, "Elena, I always knew you were the real mind behind that company. If you ever start something new, I'll back you." That one line lit a fire in me. Within a month, I rented a small studio space, nothing fancy, just enough to start again. I called it EC Creations, initials I once hid behind, now standing proudly on their own. I worked day and night, designing, pitching, planning, building. Every blueprint I drew, every deal I signed, carried the weight of my past and the strength of my purpose. My brother laughed when he heard about it, said I was playing business, but he didn't realize I wasn't trying to compete with him. I was creating something bigger. I didn't need to steal clients. They came to me on their own, one after another, when they saw the quality, the passion, the integrity in my work. Within 6 months, my small studio became a name people started whispering about, not just in town, but across cities. And while Nathan flaunted his success publicly, I was building mine quietly, with precision. I didn't want to destroy him yet. I wanted him to watch me rise, little by little, until his pride cracked under the weight of my silence. My revenge wasn't loud. It was elegant, patient, and unstoppable. It started slowly, like cracks forming beneath a painted wall, small enough to ignore at first, but impossible to hide for long. Nathan's company began missing deadlines. Clients started leaving without warning. Rumors spread that their designs lacked originality, that the spark Carter Designs was once known for had disappeared. I heard all of it quietly through the same network that had once belonged to me. I didn't have to lift a finger. Their downfall began the moment they erased me. Without creativity, without vision, they were just a name on a building. One evening, I received an invitation to a business gala. Carter Designs was one of the main sponsors, and Nathan was scheduled to give a speech about innovation and legacy. I smiled at the irony and decided to attend. When I walked in, heads turned. I hadn't been in that world for years, but the whispers followed me like a shadow. "Is that Elena Carter? I thought she moved away. Didn't she start her own firm?" Nathan saw me from the stage, and for the first time, I saw a flicker of unease in his eyes. His confident voice trembled when he spoke, and halfway through his speech, one of his biggest clients walked past him to shake my hand instead. That moment wasn't about revenge or pride. It was about justice. The same people who once looked through me now looked up to me. I didn't need to expose them. Their actions had already done that. I just stood there, smiling politely as Nathan stumbled through his words, realizing his empire was built on my stolen foundation. That night, as I walked out of the gala, I didn't feel angry anymore. I felt powerful. Because real revenge isn't about breaking others. It's about proving you can rebuild yourself after they tried to bury you. The night after the gala, I returned home for the first time in weeks. The house looked the same from the outside, but I could feel the unease before I even stepped in. My mother sat at the dining table, pretending to read, while my father paced near the window. Nathan arrived a few minutes later, his face tense, his confidence gone. He slammed his car keys on the table and said sharply, "You embarrassed me tonight, Elena." I didn't flinch. I just looked at him and replied softly, "No, Nathan. You embarrassed yourself when you decided to take what wasn't yours." My mother tried to calm him, but he snapped at her too. The silence that followed was thick, like the air itself was tired of the lies. My father finally spoke, asking me to stop creating drama, but I couldn't hold it in anymore. I told them everything I knew about the fake signatures, the missing documents, the years they pretended to care while secretly cutting me out. My voice didn't shake this time. It was steady, clear, and final. Nathan tried to defend himself, saying I had abandoned the company, but I reminded him that I had left temporarily to expand our business contacts abroad, a plan we had all agreed upon together. My mother's eyes filled with tears, and for the first time I saw guilt flicker across her face. She whispered, "We thought we were doing what was best for the family." I looked at her and said, "You didn't protect the family. You protected Nathan." The truth hung in the air like smoke, impossible to ignore. My father lowered his head, unable to meet my eyes. I stood up, ready to leave, but before I walked out, I said something that silenced the entire room. I came back to rebuild, not to beg. You can keep the house, the company name, and your lies. I'll build something that can't be taken away because it's mine. And then I walked away, leaving them in the silence they created. After that night, I stopped looking back. I poured everything I had, every skill, every ounce of anger, every tear I had ever shed, into something new. I called it EC Creations, a company built on honesty, passion, and the belief that trust was worth more than any signature. At first, people doubted me. Investors turned me down, old contacts refused to take my calls, and some even laughed, saying, "You'll never match your family's legacy." But I didn't want to match them, I wanted to surpass them. I worked day and night, sometimes sleeping on the office couch, other times not sleeping at all. Slowly, things began to change. One client turned into 5, then 10. Word spread about a woman who didn't cheat, didn't lie, and delivered exactly what she promised. My company grew faster than anyone expected. The same people who once ignored me started reaching out, some out of guilt, others out of greed. But I remembered every face that turned away when I needed them most. I learned to smile politely, but I never forgot. Within a year, EC Creations ** was featured in business magazines as the bold new player shaking up the market. And when they asked me what motivated me, I said simply, "Betrayal teaches you more than success ever could." Asterisk, it started with a message from my mother. Asterisk, Elena, your father isn't well. He wants to see you. Asterisk, for a moment, my heart stung, a reflex, I guess, from the part of me that still wanted to believe we were a family. But when I walked into that same mansion where my downfall began, everything looked smaller. My father, once the man who made every decision, now sat quietly, his pride crumbling faster than his company. Elena, he said, voice shaking, we made mistakes. We need your help. I just looked at him. My brother stood beside him, eyes down, the same man who had taken everything from me without blinking. You didn't need me when you tore me apart, I said calmly. Why now? My father tried to speak, but guilt choked his words. For years, I dreamed of this moment, not to humiliate them, but to finally let go. I told them I'd buy their company, but under one condition: they would step down and never use the Carter name again. The silence in that room was deafening. My brother's fists clenched, my mother's eyes filled with tears, and for the first time, my father looked powerless. You can't do this, my brother hissed. I smiled faintly. I already did. That day, I walked out not as the broken daughter they once betrayed, but as the woman who took back everything they stole, piece by piece, with quiet strength and no mercy. Asterisk, that night, I sat by my window, the city lights reflecting off the glass like distant stars. The air was calm, quiet, the kind of silence that only comes after a long war. In front of me lay an old envelope, yellowed at the edges, addressed in my father's handwriting. I had found it earlier that day in his study, hidden beneath a drawer. My hands trembled slightly as I opened it. Inside was a short letter, an apology, raw and broken. He wrote that he had been blinded by pride, that he had believed strength came from control, not love. He said he realized too late what he had done to me, and that losing me had been the price of his arrogance. For a moment, my chest ached, not out of anger, but out of something deeper. I had spent years rebuilding myself from ashes, teaching my heart to stop needing their approval. And now, here was the man who once destroyed me, asking for forgiveness he never thought I'd grant. I didn't cry. I didn't smile either. I just folded the letter back and placed it in the fire. Some stories don't need to end with forgiveness. They end with peace. As the paper curled and turned to ash, I felt a strange calm wash over me. The girl who once begged to be seen was gone. In her place stood a woman who had learned that power isn't in revenge or wealth. It's in walking away with your head held high. Outside, the night felt endless, but for the first time in years, I wasn't afraid of tomorrow. The sun rose slowly that morning, soft, golden, unhurried. Its light slipped through the tall glass windows of Elena Carter's penthouse, touching everything it met: the polished floor, the velvet curtains, the single white rose on her desk. The city below began to stir, 1,000 lives waking up, chasing dreams that looked nothing like hers. Elena stood before the window, barefoot, her reflection faint against the morning glow. She wasn't the same woman who had once returned home hoping to belong. That version of her, fragile, eager to prove, desperate to be understood, had burned away long ago. Piece by piece, truth by truth. In her hand, she held a small silver locket, the last thing her mother had left her. She opened it, tracing the photograph inside. A young girl with wide eyes and hope too big for her world. "You made it," she whispered softly, voice steady but tender. "You survived them." Behind her, the fireplace was cold. Only traces of ash remained, the final remains of her father's letter. The words were gone now, but their weight had lifted with the smoke. For the first time, she didn't feel the urge to look back. Her phone buzzed quietly on the table. A message from the board. Congratulations, Miss Carter. The merger is finalized. You're officially CEO. She smiled faintly. It wasn't pride that curved her lips this time. It was clarity. The victory wasn't the title, the company, or the revenge. It was that she no longer needed anyone's approval to exist. Elena turned, her silk robe flowing behind her as she walked toward the balcony. The wind greeted her, cool and clean, brushing through her hair like an old friend. The city stretched before her, vast, untamed, alive. "I used to think I was alone," she murmured, her voice carried by the breeze. "But I was just becoming." For a long moment, she stood there, strong, calm, unbroken. The world that once rejected her now waited for her next move. She didn't know where life would take her, and for once, that uncertainty didn't scare her. She looked down at the streets below, then back up at the endless blue sky. Her reflection in the glass was no longer the image of a betrayed daughter or a vengeful woman.